The first thing Bo did when he entered the resident group enclosure was walk up to Rex and extend his right hand. Rex was the dominant male of the group, 11 years old, 42 pounds, and in possession of the particular quality of stillness that spider monkeys develop when they have been the largest animal in a room for long enough to stop needing to prove it. He had been dominant for 4 years. He had seen new animals introduced before. He knew the choreography. What Bo was doing was not the choreography. Rex looked at the extended hand. He looked at Bo. He looked at the hand again. Then he looked across the enclosure at Tom Hadley, who was standing at the observation window with his notebook open and his pen not moving, because Tom had been Bo's primary keeper for 2 years and knew exactly where Bo had learned to greet someone new, and was currently processing the full weight of that knowledge. Bo held his hand out for 6 seconds. Then he dropped it, tilted his head, and sat down on the ground directly in front of Rex in the cross-legged position he used when he was watching television in the keeper break room. Rex sat down too. Not in the cross-legged position, his anatomy did not favor it. But he sat, which was not something he typically did during a dominance assessment, and he looked at Bo with the expression that Dr. Simona Park, watching from the adjacent observation room, would later describe in her notes as something she had never seen on an alpha male spider monkey before, and was not entirely sure she had the right word for. Cautious, she finally wrote. Rex looked cautious, as if he was not certain what was being asked of him and did not want to answer incorrectly. Tom closed his notebook. He sat down on his side of the glass, and he thought about the 2 years that had produced this moment, and whether he had done the right things, and whether right was even the applicable concept. Bo had arrived at Wildwood Spider Monkey Sanctuary on a Wednesday in March, 2 days old, wrapped in a fleece blanket, weighing less than a pound. His mother had died in a wildlife removal situation in Central Florida, a spider monkey that had been someone's illegal pet for 9 years. Confiscated by the state, transferred to a facility that was not equipped to handle a primate in active labor. The facility had called Wildwood. Wildwood had sent Tom. Tom had been keeping spider monkeys for 6 years, not a veterinarian, not a behaviorist, but someone who had learned through accumulated hours and accumulated mistakes how to read spider monkeys well enough to anticipate what they needed before they had to ask. What Bo needed in those first days was warmth, formula every 2 hours, and physical contact. Tom slept on a cot in the quarantine room for the first 3 weeks. Bo pressed against his chest, an alarm set for every 2 hours that he did not need because he was waking up before it went off anyway. He knew from the beginning that this was going to create a problem. Not attachment. Attachment was necessary, was the entire mechanism by which Bo was going to survive. The problem was what came after, the question of what Bo was going to understand the world to be, based entirely on the information available to him in the first 2 years of his development. Spider monkeys learn who they are from their social group, their vocalizations, their body language, their relationship to trees and canopy, all from observation and imitation of their own kind. Bo's community, for the first 2 years of his life, consisted of Tom Hadley and 4 other human keepers. So Bo learned what he saw. He learned to greet with an extended hand, because that was how the keepers greeted each other. He learned to sit in chairs. He learned that meals arrived in bowls, and for 3 months he attempted to use a spoon before deciding his hands were faster. He learned that when something was funny, the appropriate response was a sound approximating human laughter, which Tom found endearing, and Dr. Park, when she reviewed the footage, found professionally extraordinary. He learned, most significantly, to be afraid of trees. This was not a failure of care. It was a consequence of environment. The quarantine facility had no canopy. It had no climbing structures taller than 2 meters. Bo had never been in a tree. Trees, to Bo, were large, unfamiliar objects that swayed in the wind and that the keepers, who were his entire model for how a competent individual navigated the world, clearly did not interact with. The keepers walked on the ground. Bo walked on the ground. This made sense. The first time Tom introduced Bo to the outdoor enrichment yard and Bo encountered a live oak tree for the first time, Bo walked up to it, put his hand on the bark, looked up into the canopy, and then walked back to Tom and stood very close to his left leg. Tom wrote in his weekly report, "We have work to do." The decision to begin introduction to the resident group came when Bo was 26 months old, later than the standard protocol recommended, because the standard protocol had not been written for an animal with Bo's particular developmental history. And Tom and Dr. Park had spent 4 months discussing the timing with the careful attention of people who understood that getting it wrong was not a recoverable situation. The resident group had 8 members. Rex was the dominant male. The 2 highest-ranking females were a 7-year-old named Cora and a 9-year-old named Iris, both born at the sanctuary, both socially fluent in the full behavioral vocabulary of their species. The other 5 were a mix of ages and histories, none of them human-raised. All of them operating according to the social logic that spider monkeys had been using for considerably longer than Wildwood had been in existence. Dr. Park's assessment, delivered 3 weeks before the introduction, was precise and not comforting. Bo's body language repertoire was roughly 30% of what a spider monkey his age should have. His vocalizations were narrow and inconsistently applied. His relationship to vertical space remained avoidant. His social greeting behaviors were, as she phrased it with some delicacy, entirely derived from a different species. The probability of successful integration, she said, was not something she was prepared to put a number on. Tom asked what she recommended. She said she recommended doing it anyway, because the alternative was a spider monkey who spent the rest of his life in a keeper break room, and that was not an outcome either of them was prepared to accept. The first session lasted 40 minutes. During those 40 minutes, Bo attempted the handshake greeting with Rex, sat cross-legged on the ground in front of an alpha male who had never encountered this behavioral presentation and appeared to find it deeply confusing, made the approximated human laugh sound when Cora approached him and then immediately alarmed her by doing so, and ate his enrichment fruit directly from the ground with his hands while sitting upright in a posture that was, as Tom described it afterward, less spider monkey eating fruit and more person eating lunch at a desk. What he did not do was use the trees. The resident group moved through the enclosure with the fluid, 3-dimensional ease of animals that had been climbing since infancy, and Bo watched them from the ground with the focused attention of someone watching a skill he recognized as important and had no framework for acquiring. What the resident group did not do was attack him. This was the first surprise. Tom and Dr. Park had prepared for aggression, had the intervention protocol ready, had discussed the threshold conditions, had positioned 2 staff members at the enclosure exits. Aggression was the expected response to an animal presenting such a comprehensive disruption of normal social expectations. Rex should have established dominance within the first 5 minutes. Cora should have run a social assessment. The lower-ranking animals should have deferred to whatever the senior members decided. Instead, the resident group treated Bo the way you treat something genuinely unprecedented with the suspended, watchful attention of animals that were receiving information they did not yet have a category for. Rex watched Bo sit cross-legged and did not challenge him. Cora watched Bo eat from the ground and tilted her head. An adolescent male named Skip spent 12 minutes observing Bo from a branch 6 feet above the ground. then climbed down to the ground, which Skip did not typically do during social assessments, and sat 2 feet away from Bo and watched him more closely. Tom wrote in his session notes, "They are curious. I do not know what to do with that." The second session produced the first shock. Rex extended his hand, not in the fluid, practiced way that Bo had offered the greeting in session 1. Rex had not grown up watching humans shake hands, and his version of the gesture was approximate. The arm not quite fully extended, the hand more open than Bo's had been. But the intention was unmistakable. Rex had watched Bo extend his hand in session 1. Rex had spent whatever portion of the intervening 48 hours spider monkeys spend processing new social information thinking about it, and Rex had arrived at session 2 prepared to try. Bo took Rex's hand. They held the contact for perhaps 3 seconds, Bo with the comfortable familiarity of an animal for whom this gesture was entirely natural. Rex with the focused attention of an animal executing a new behavior and monitoring the results. Then Rex released the hand and sat back, and his expression, as Dr. Park noted immediately in her observation log, had shifted from the cautious uncertainty of session 1 into something that looked considerably more like satisfaction. Tom watched this from the observation window and did not write anything in his notebook for several minutes. What followed over the next 6 weeks moved faster than either Tom or Dr. Park had anticipated, and in directions that neither of them had predicted. Bo began to learn. This was expected. The entire purpose of the introduction was to expose him to the behavioral repertoire of his own species and allow the social learning mechanisms that spider monkeys possess to do what they were designed to do. What was expected was that Bo would gradually, through observation and imitation and the social feedback of the resident group, begin to acquire species-appropriate behaviors. What was not expected was the direction of flow, and if you think about what that means for a second, an animal that does not know how to be its own species, walking into an established group and changing how that group behaves, you start to understand why Dr. Park needed someone else to confirm what she was seeing before she wrote it down. By week 3, Skip had stopped using his food bowl and was eating directly from the ground, sitting upright, in a posture that bore a striking resemblance to Bo's lunchtime presentation. By week 5, 3 members of the resident group had been observed sitting with their backs straight in the particular posture that Bo used when he was paying close attention to something, a posture with one clear point of origin. But it was week 4 that stopped Tom entirely. He had entered the enclosure for the morning feeding, the way he did every day, and Cora had been near the gate. Cora was 9 years old, high-ranking, not a female who made casual social overtures to keepers. She had acknowledged Tom's presence for 4 years the way spider monkeys acknowledge the presence of familiar humans, noting it, filing it, moving on. That morning she walked up to him and held out her hand. Tom stood in the enclosure with a feed bucket in one hand and Cora's extended hand in front of him and took approximately 4 seconds to process what was happening. Then he shifted the bucket to his other hand and shook it. Cora held the contact for 2 seconds, released it, and walked away with the composure of an animal that had decided to try something and found it satisfactory. Tom went directly to the observation room and wrote in his session notes, "Cora offered a handshake greeting this morning. She learned this from Bo. Bo learned it from us. I do not know what the correct response to this information is." Dr. Park called Tom from her office on a Thursday evening. She said she needed him to confirm something in the week 5 footage before she wrote it down. Tom confirmed it. She said that in 11 years of primate research, she had documented social learning moving from more competent individuals to less competent ones, across generations, across rank. She had never documented it moving from a behaviorally deficient individual into an established group and changing the group's behavior in the process. Tom said he knew. She said she needed to think about how to write it up. Tom said he knew that too. He was still watching Bo through the observation window as they spoke. Bo was on the ground at the base of the large fig tree at the center of the enclosure, looking up into the canopy. Rex was in the canopy above him, eating. Skip was 2 branches above Rex. As Tom watched, Bo reached out and put his hand on the bark of the fig tree. He looked up again. He moved his hand higher. Then higher, he climbed 3 feet before he stopped, looked down at the ground, and came back down. He sat at the base of the tree and looked up at Rex. Rex looked down at Bo. Then Rex descended 1 branch, not all the way to the ground. 1 branch lower than he had been. It was a small movement. It covered perhaps 4 feet of vertical distance, but Tom understood, watching it happen, that what Rex had just done was not a small thing, that an alpha male in a stable dominance position does not move towards something without a reason, and that the reason, in this case, was standing at the base of a tree looking up with his hand still on the bark. Tom said into the phone, "I have to go." He went back to his notebook. He wrote the date, and the time, and what he had just seen. Then he wrote 1 more line, which he was not sure was appropriate for a field record, but which he felt was necessary to document somewhere. Bo taught them to shake hands. Rex is teaching him to climb. I think they have decided this is fair. Bo made it to the top of the fig tree on a Tuesday morning 6 weeks later, with Rex 2 branches below him and Skip below Rex and Cora, calling from a tree at the far end of the enclosure in the particular vocalization that spider monkeys use when a member of the group has done something that warrants acknowledgement. Tom was at the observation window. He had learned, over 2 years and 6 weeks, and a number of intervening days, that he would not have been able to explain to anyone who had not been present for them. How to tell the difference between Bo performing a behavior and Bo inhabiting one. Bo was in the canopy of the fig tree, 40 feet up, the Florida morning light filtering through the leaves around him, and he was inhabiting it. His body was in the tree the way spider monkey bodies are in trees, the long limbs distributed across 3 branches simultaneously, the prehensile tail engaged, the weight shifting with the small, continuous adjustments of an animal that has learned to read the tree as an extension of its own body. He was not afraid of the height. He was not performing for anyone. He was simply there, in the way he was supposed to be there, in the way he had not been there until Rex decided to move down 1 branch on a Tuesday evening and begin the process of meeting him somewhere between the ground and the canopy. Tom wrote the date in his notebook. He wrote the time. He wrote top of the fig tree. First time. Then he put the pen down and just watched for a while. It seemed like the right thing to do.